Well, welcome to the House of the Dragon Aftershow, everyone. We are so happy to have you here. I'm Kris Carr, and joining me, of course, is the dude of verisimilitude himself.
The Viceroy.
The Viceroy.
Get it right. These are royal titles.
I like the dude of verisimilitude because then it makes it sound like you're also having a cocktail where you're having a great time being cool.
Well, we can do that together.
Yeah. I mean,
cheers to that, by the way. Thanks for the Game of Thrones
anytime.
Hooch.
We're running low. I got every order.
Ooh, I like that.
I know. Well, we are here to talk to you about all things House of the Dragon. It's a full open spoiler discussion. So if you have not seen the show, get out of here. Come back later. We'll be here. Don't worry about it. We don't want to spoil anything for you if you haven't watched. So with that down and out of the way, let's get into this episode. This was some sexy time frolics.
Wow, was it?
Yeah.
I actually have to say I really enjoyed this episode quite a bit because they gave us battles, they gave us confrontations on Dragonstone, all that stuff. This really delved into not just the lives of our characters and who we're watching the alliance on one side and we're watching both sides of the Civil War being forged in this episode. And we got sexy time.
Yeah.
And we got to see a little bit of life in King's Landing. There's so much about this episode that I really, really liked. And I was surprised at how much I liked it. I was also surprised at some of the twists and turns that this episode took. And Daemon is a complex figure.
Yes, he is. And let's just get into that a little bit, right? So Daemon comes back and, pledges fealty to his king once again. I have the stepping stones for you, my grace. There is but one true king. Seems really, really committed. And Viserys is just so happy that his brother is back. They're carrying on. They're cutting up. They're drinking together. Much to the chagrin, honestly, of his wife and his daughter, because Viserys is real PO'd with Rhaenyra, how she treated her suitors, which was just a cluster.
Let's go back to that because that was that whole opening when she's interviewing these suitors. I really did like the scene where this pipsqueak shows up. He rocks up there and goes, "I'm from the house of blah, blah, blah." And the guy says, "Well, Rhaenyra, they're a great old family. They have blood in their veins. It would be a good match. And they're fierce fighters and all this." And Rhaenyra's like, "He's a kid." They play out the same thing that Viserys had marrying a kid. She would have to marry a kid. And then, of course, some bully starts talking smack to this kid. He's like, "Yeah? You come on over here."
A grown-ass man is talking smack to that kid. And then he knifes him.
Steps up and just shanks that dude.
Yeah. Well, and I do love that Rhaenyra was just like, actually, this one is pretty charming. We're going to get out of here because I'm not going to marry a kid. But he's trying his best.
He's trying his best. And yes, and clearly, I liked that scene. I liked how it opened up. And, it really brought home the idea that marriage in these times was a political and it was for the family, it was for politics, it was not for love.
Absolutely. Well, and we're going back on that too, right? Because Viserys' last episode was choose your own suitor, follow your heart like I did. But now we're running into some political issues now that the stepping stones have been retaken because the sea snake is off and potentially making other elite alliances with other people.
With people in the free cities, which would make them very formidable indeed.
Exactly. So with that knowledge, I love that Rhaenyra is, hey, I might have to get married. I might have to go do this. And her uncle comes to town and seems like he's just going to take her out for a fun night on the city.
Well, what I loved about it was you knew something was up when she goes into for the night and finds this smelly bag of peasant clothes and a note. And she discovers, unbeknownst to her, that there's a secret passage behind her headboard of the bed she sleeps in every night. And so she opens it up and walks through there. It walks into the biggest dragon skull in the town, in the city ever. And I loved that. I mean, I loved all of this stuff, the subterfuge, and then when she finds him just hanging out with that grin on his face, the Cheshire cat grin.
Yeah, and given everything that happens, very uncomfortable knowing the uncle knows that secret passageway now.
Yeah.
Because at first it seems like a fairly innocent trip through the city. We all know, though, that Daemon has other things in motion here. From the very first episode, when he puts that Valyrian steel necklace around her neck, you know that there's some kind of tension between them, some very Targaryen tension. And so they go see a play, they do all of this, but then the brothel happens. they have really great chemistry, and it's very uncomfortable.
You know, the woman who directed this episode, she was interviewed in the after show. Mm-hmm. Now, I worked on a show called Femme Fatales for HBO Cinemax, and I actually had to direct intimate scenes before we had intimacy coordinators. And I thought what she said was really interesting, that she grew up watching a lot of sexy time directed by men. And what I loved about the scenes in this, if men shot this, they would concentrate on the mechanics,
yes.
the pornographic mechanics of what was going on. The way this was directed, it was more like a phantasmagoria of sex. It was more like a feeling. It was more like it was eliciting this. I thought it was a really interesting way to go, where the camera never focused on one thing. It was constantly moving. And in a way, the way the camera moved across all of these sensual acts was in itself sensual. So you didn't have time to focus on any one thing, just like somebody who had never been exposed to sexuality would have. And so I really thought it did a great job. She did a great job directing this and seeing Rhaenyra's gaze, because this was such alien activity that she was seeing all at once. And they really did a great job of doing that. I mean, it was, and it never, for me, I'm like, wait a minute, do what I want. Stop the camera on some of that hot action. But they never did. And I loved that, because it really felt like it was from her perspective, and she was being, I mean, this was the adult world smacking her in the face.
Yeah.
And then, of course, being overwhelmed by it, her uncle completely took advantage of her, got her liquored up. You know, he was like some frat boy gone bad on a college date.
Absolutely.
And it was really uncomfortable, and it was really manipulative, and it was really, and she was, obviously he bet on the fact that he could seduce her with all of this, the wine, the song, the city, all these sensual pleasures she'd never experienced before.
And playing on her fear of never getting to experience that, right? Because ultimately the lesson being told here of, hey, like this should be enjoyable for women as well, is something that she should know and have agency with her own life. But given, you know, her title, given the time period, given the world that they're in, that's usually not something like that happens, as we see with Alicent, right? So it's such a confusing scene too of, yeah, we want Rhaenyra to have sexual agency, but not with her uncle.
No, and you know, we saw early on, they established early on, I think in the first episode, that he does suffer from impotency.
Yes.
Like he can't get the job done. And thank God, you know, they couldn't consummate the act. And, you know, he smashes the wall and leaves.
Yes.
And basically leaves her. So they don't consummate.
No, they don't.
She keeps her virtue. But this has been so overwhelmed, like anybody. I mean, when your hormones are cranked up for the first time, and she goes home, and we knew that at some point she was going to hook up with her very handsome guard.
Oh, Sir Criston is very handsome, very devoted to her. But what a weird power dynamic too, though, because it at first is this fun teenage girl playful thing. But then once they start, you know, getting him undressed and unarmored, he seemed so nonplussed about it, because, I mean, a princess trying to bed you could also be a death sentence for you.
A death sentence, and like you can't say no. You can't say no to your princess. I mean, you've got to do it. That's the whole point. You're in her service.
That's what it seemed like too.
And he was, because he tried. I'm like, this isn't cool. No. But I mean, so she didn't sleep with her uncle, thank God. But she did sleep with her guard.
Yeah.
But all of this and the juxtaposition of what was going on with Alicent, like, oh, the king has summoned you. You knew what was going to go down there.
Yeah, the hour is late is such a heartbreaking line. And then that shot of her, oh my gosh. One, because we see how just absolutely she is not on board with this. But two, also you see how Viserys is continuing to just, you know, become more and more sickly. Oh. So we keep getting broadcast every single episode how he's getting worse and worse. So we know that death is just impending.
It's coming. And then, of course, Otto Hightower He's got like somebody said he was like Varys, that he wasn't so much like Tyrion. He's more like Varys with his little sparrows, his little birds out into the world. Some kid sees Rhaenyra leaving the pleasure house and reports back to Otto. And of course, Otto, schemer that he is, uses this information and takes it right to Viserys.
Yes.
And the scenes between them I thought were fantastic.
Oh, it's so well done when he confronts him about, how he became the Hand in the first place, how he took over that position just kind of on a fluke, on a freak accident, and how he's had his own machinations this entire time that Viserys wasn't even willing to see and finally admitted,
And it was so great because he figured out the Alicent thing was that you sent her to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did honestly fall in love with her, and because she was so kind to him and helped him through this, how could he not? But it was all a setup.
Absolutely.
And he realized that. He called him on it. It was so great. I loved it. It's like, because the thing is, Viserys, I think, could be a good king, but he's not a scheming guy.
I know.
So he's smart enough to realize what's going on, but he's never one step ahead of it.
Oh, absolutely not. He seems like he's ultimately fairly altruistic and is just disappointed that other people don't do the right thing.
Yes.
But at the same time, that's so not politically savvy. And he at least has said things, the council has always had their own interest. All of these people come because they have their own interest, but that's part of this game.
Right.
But you'd think with that understanding, he'd be a little more savvy. It's weird to watch sometimes of just, come on, Viserys, let's go. Let's just get ahead of them just a little bit.
And so he says that, and they have their confrontation, and then he goes, and of course, this word spreads, and Alicent goes to Rhaenyra and says, "Is this true?" And she's like, "No, technically, it isn't true. I mean, sure, I pushed the borders of horribleness, but I didn't." So she's not lying. Of course, she didn't say anything about our boy.
No.
And her guard. But technically, what she's been accused of, while it almost went there, it didn't. And again, everybody's in a position where you can't tell the truth.
Yeah. Well, and obviously Viserys doesn't fully believe her, since we get that T, the plan B T at the end.
But I think the plan B T is because he really thinks that she did hook up with Daemon.
With Daemon.
He doesn't know anything about the guard.
Yeah.
That's a secret. But the fact is, even after she says, "That's not true, Father," he's like, "Come on."
Yeah.
I know my brother.
I know my brother and I know you. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think she drank it?
See, that's what I was wondering. And at first I went, oh my gosh, this was such an abrupt ending. But then the more I kind of sat and ruminated on it, it was, oh no, this made entirely perfect sense of just that look to the T of, do I need that? And am I going to do it?
Well, the funny thing is she actually might need it.
Exactly.
And there's no DNA testing in Westeros. And I'm thinking, if I was her, I would defiantly not drink it, because if she drinks it, that's an admission of guilt with Daemon. At least that's what her father, because it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what the perception of the truth is. So, and then if she's going to have to succumb to this marriage and gives birth to somebody that doesn't look like,
that doesn't have white hair.
I mean, it's going to be, I'm watching all these things and I'm going, I'm cringing, but that's why I love the show so much.
Oh yeah. Well, and the setup for next week too, just feels like are we getting like the prequel to Red Wedding? Because it looks like things are going to be wild. So I am thankful that we did get a very character driven story this week, when next week looks like it's going to be just pure action.
Yeah. I mean, next week looks completely bonkers, because we know that Viserys goes to the Sea Snake, goes to their realm.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to finally see I keep saying driftwood.
Yeah,
the
Driftmark, yeah.
The Driftmark, we're finally going to see that, and that's going to be interesting, but all hell's going to break loose.
I do want to see more of Corleus's kind of realm and what he's doing, because that character's so fascinating.
And I love seeing the ships.
Yeah.
Give me his armada of ships. I love that shit.
How do you think that marriage is going to work out too, between his son and Rhaenyra?
Is it going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's really strange. I mean, even though I know the bare bones of this whole story, I don't know the details. So I kind of like that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I have not gone back and read I haven't read Blood and Fire.
I'm flying completely blind. I
Yeah.
don't know what happens at all, except for obviously what happens once we get to Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. I mean, I thought this episode had some really interesting. It delved into things that Game of Thrones did not. I mean, the original Game of Thrones, and the way I really like this the relationship. The relationships are much more intimate. It's not on the broad canvas that Game of Thrones was. I like this. It's basically a very contained story with these contained characters.
Yeah.
And you're not jumping from place to place. And there's just as much intrigue as there was in Game of Thrones when you're going from story to story to story.
When you brought up something so cool off camera too about the opening credits of how we're jumping from kind of family to family.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Do the opening credits mean that? Because I'm looking at them going, the opening credits of Game of Thrones told us where we were going to go in Westeros, this week. Now, are the sigils that are rising, are they the people that we're going to touch on? The families that were?
That's what it seems like.
But I don't know, because they don't look as different. Like, you're not moving across a map. You're zipping through the model, Viserys's model, and I'm not sure if that's correct yet, because I don't know the sigils or the logos. They're logos, branding logos of the families, but I would imagine so. But I don't know if that's true yet.
Oh man, that's definitely something I'm going to pay closer attention to.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, any other thoughts and theories for what we're getting into now?
Well, I mean, obviously, you've got sides, because Aegon II, who's newly born Aegon, obviously Otto Hightower is his grandfather. So Otto and Alicent and Aegon are on one side of the war that is brewing. Then you've got Daemon and Rhaenyra and whoever else they allied themselves with are on the other side. And these are the two factions that are it's all brewing. So we're going to see, will the sea snake listen to Viserys and say, hey, okay, I agree to this marriage? Or will he say, F you, dude?
Yeah.
We don't know, but it's gonna. But Daemon and him have a bond. They've been fighting on the steps for 3 years.
Exactly.
So I would imagine that's where Daemon comes in and goes, yo, come on, we're allied here. You have to come on our side. Come over to us. Come to our side.
And is Daemon going to throw Rhaenyra under the bus and say, hey, your son's not marrying a maiden?
Right.
I hit that.
Yeah. Is that going to happen? And in which case, then people are not. Is her claim to the throne that was given to her by her father, is that moot? I don't know. How does that work?
There's a lot happening.
A lot happening. I mean,
things.
but what I love about this is how it just ratchets up. You can see all of this. You might not have the sweeping things that happen in Game of Thrones, but I really like how it's rapidly paced, but the tension is just being drawn out. And someone's going to get garroted soon.
Oh yeah, it's a pot that's boiling, and we're at the point where everything's going to just boil over.
Yeah.
And that's so fascinating.
I can't wait.
Oh, I'm hyped. Well, guys, we are going to turn it over to you all now. You can still send in those super chats, I believe, right, Taylor?
No, they're closed.
Oh, no, we're closed. Okay, well, we're just going to take a minute then to thank the sponsor of this video, the folks over at Manscaped.
We want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Now, guys, I love Manscaped. You've heard me go on and on about the Lawnmower 4.0 and that body wash. I love it so much. And so we got to ask, guys, have you started your spring cleaning yet? The carpets need cleaning, the drapes need dusting, and your lawn needs mowing, gentlemen. And you guys know Manscaped is more than just one product. They have a whole lineup of products to help you guys feeling, smelling, and looking your best. And so Manscaped is proud to present to you the Performance Package 4.0, which is the only tool that you need to keep your boys looking, smelling, and feeling good this spring. Now, to start off with, you get the Lawnmower 4.0. Guys, we have talked about this. What is wrong with us? Why have we for so long been using these terrible tools that were never meant for cutting our hair down there? The razor clipper things on our electric razors. That's barbaric, guys. You need the Lawnmower 4.0. And then there's the Weed Whacker. You guys have heard our own Ray Ora talk about this thing. He loves using it to get that hair in your nose and the ear hair. And then they offer lots of other stuff like the Crop Preserver. It's an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. The Crop Reviver. It's a spray-on toner for your balls. And of course, they've got the perfect grooming tool for your face with the Plow 2.0, the perfect razor for the finest shave on that face. So guys, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code CAMPEA. That's CAMPEA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the promo code Campea at manscaped.com. It's time to throw out your old hygiene habits and upgrade your life.
And a big thank you to Manscaped. Manscaped, for when you're going to have Game of Thrones style sexy times. Use Manscaped. All right, guys, let's get into those super chats. Rob, what do we have? Did you like that?
I did like that. Let's see. We start with Sam Fisher. This was my favorite episode so far. I liked all the others, but this was the first one I loved.
Ooh, nice.
All right, Sam. I bet I know why. Alex Von Gollum says, hello, everyone. Now that Otto is no longer the Hand, what do you think his next move will be? Will he conspire against Viserys? I think so.
I think maybe, yeah. I think so.
Well, he has to protect his own position now, and he knows that his grandson is going to be should be the rightful heir.
He's already been making moves to make sure that happens. So I think just because you take the pin away doesn't mean you take away the intention.
I mean, the thing is, people did see Rhaenyra leave from a pleasure house, so there's the gossip can spread, and that gossip Otto can just allow that gossip to do what it's going to do.
Exactly. We'll see how it all plays out. All right, what else?
A-Rod 2006 says, I understand now why Daenerys and Jon Snow are so comfortable with each other. It's the Targaryen tradition.
Well, and we even have Alicent do that line of you Targaryens. You
Right.
have your traditions. So I love that everyone is like, we know that you all are into incest and we're not cool with it, but it's fine, I guess. Like, it's such a weird kind of line that people have drawn. If the Lannisters do it, disgusting. If the Targaryens do it, they've got dragons.
Right.
It's fine. No worries.
Sam Fisher says, I love the cutting back and forth between pleasure and Alicent's boredom, just like the tournament and the C-section in episode 1. I don't know if it was so much boredom as like this horrible cross she had to bear. I mean, at the beck and call of a man who basically just wants to ride her whenever it's convenient for him.
Yeah.
You know,
this show does such a good job with the editing, too, of cutting back to those kinds of things, of, the excitement of a tournament and the just horrific nature of what's happening to Emma. For this to have a woman who has sexual agency and one who has none whatsoever. I mean, they're doing a really fantastic job just with all of the nonverbal narrative here. And that's what good stories do, right? They show, they don't tell.
I completely agree. Completely agree. Evelyn Jaquera Quiroz says, gotta love Matt Smith in this role. Daemon is fire.
Oh, yeah, he's doing great.
Or he can't bring the fire at the last minute, though.
That's very true.
He's not able to consummate the deed.
No.
Which, by the way, I think makes him a great character because he's all swaggering with bravado, and yet when it comes down to getting it done,
he can't.
Sometimes he just can't do it.
Which it's very interesting, too, because you brought up the whole female gaze earlier of how that first sex scene we see in Game of Thrones or in House of the Dragon is much more of that traditional scene of him in the brothel, with Mira. Is that her name? Mira?
Yeah.
And that's a much more standard kind of Game of Thrones-esque sex scene. And when we got to this one, it is all cutaways. It is all mostly focused on like kissing and breath and all of this stuff.
And it's focused on sensuality.
Yes.
I mean, the hunger that people feel. And that's the difference between a man and a woman in terms of directing sex scenes. And I love that.
Yeah.
And it was all close-ups and all, you could feel the heat between me and you, as Prince sang.
And then how angry he was about not being able to complete.
Because he needed to complete it for his plan.
Exactly. Oh, man. So interesting.
Bobcat Driver says, the gold cloak who let Rhaenyra and Daemon pass without challenge is Harwin Strong, the oldest son of Lord Lionel Strong, the King's Master of Laws.
Oh.
Harwin will be an important character moving forward.
Okay, that's good to know.
Well, that was a great way to introduce him.
Oh, yeah.
Where are you going, boy? Or whatever. Yeah, all right. Then I guess he'd be Team Rhaenyra. Maybe.
I would think so. Well, and especially since she's running, I think that's also in her camp of like, oh my gosh, no, like she was having a horrible night. This poor thing. I should have taken her back to the castle.
Because he saw her when she was dressed as a peasant.
Yes.
Not coming out of the House of Pleasure.
Yeah.
So
we'll see how that pans out.
I stole a fruit. Justice Seymour said, I believe Otto has the best interests of the king and the realm at heart, and the king knows that, but chose to side with his daughter anyways. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he's playing the Game of Thrones too, and Viserys realized that. Remember, don't forget, when he told Alicent to go to visit the king, he said, "Wear your mother's dress."
Exactly.
It was like, boom, chicka, bow, wow. That's what he wanted to have happen.
And
he wanted this to occur.
Absolutely. And respectfully, Justin, I think you can have both of those things, right?
Yes.
I think he does want what's ultimately best for the kingdom, but we also have his brother constantly talking about what's happening in Old Town and how that needs to be, at the forefront of issues. And then we also have him really pushing for his own bloodline to be on the throne. So he can care about his king while caring about himself. Just like Viserys said, they have their own political agendas.
I would absolutely agree with that. He does care about the realm, but he cares about the realm as long as he's partly in charge.
Exactly. If you look at
he's Tywin Lannister.
Yeah. I mean, any politician in this story or in the actual real world, yeah, you want to fight for causes that you believe in, but sometimes those causes benefit you too, and those don't have to be, mutually exclusive things.
No.
All right, what else?
Bobcat Driver says, also, with it being 1 year since the events of episode 3, Alicent has given birth to another important character, Helaena Targaryen.
Oh, yeah, we saw the tiny baby.
We saw the baby.
Yeah. So we'll see how that pans out.
I don't know what Helaena, I don't know. Who is she going to be friends with?
I don't know what she brings to the table, but I'm excited for that baby to grow up, cause some ruckus. What else?
The man with the master plan sends in a super chat and says, I keep telling myself not to watch the previews, but I did. And what a wedding in Westeros. Uh-oh. I am not a book reader, by the way.
Oh, man, I'm not either, man with a master plan, but that little preview looks like there's going to be some chaos, some violence. My least favorite kind of violence looks like it's going to show up there.
Shenanigans. High violence.
I'm going to be watching a lot of this like this and asking people if I can watch. It's going to be fun. All right.
Good. The man with the master plan goes on to say, what's up with Daemon? 1 minute, he's the coolest dude in Westeros, and the next, a drunk who takes his niece to a show to get her all riled up. Ew, I need to take a shower now. Well, I'd like to say that both are true.
Yeah.
I think people with the master plan, the man with the master plan, you can be that guy, but you're also, look, if you like your wine, your women, and your song, that doesn't mean you're not a schemer and smart and a great on the battlefield. People are complex.
Exactly. Daemon contains multitudes. Are some of those things that he contains disgusting? Sure. But he also has the swagger, the care for his family, just maybe a little too much care and the wrong kind.
Yeah. He thinks he can get away with it. Mm-hmm. And perhaps he can. Santes Henderson says, I'm loving this show. Otto being confronted by the king made me cheer. The king really loves his daughter and will not tolerate any plotting against her. How cold was Daemon, though? What a smug asshat. Well, here's what I think about these. We're judging these people based on the way we are right now.
Exactly.
And you have to look back at them and go, these people are not constrained by our morals or ethical principles. Every part of their lives, especially royals, they do not have our concerns. Mm-hmm. And they're also constrained by how the realm, how life works back then.
Oh, absolutely. I was listening to E-Man Reviews yesterday as the recap before I went into the episode as my refresher. Oh my gosh, go listen to E-Man. He's brilliant. But he put into perspective this really, really great moment from the previous episode of, is Rhaenyra being ridiculous about her friend? Having to marry her father and have his babies and all of this, because that was what is normal for the time and for the realm that they're living in. So when you believe in the actualities of the universe we're doing the story in, you have to remove your own judgment from it. You really do. You do,
but I think for her, she can be pissed because it was still her friend.
Oh, absolutely. But after several years, and we see that finally in this episode of, okay, hey, no, we're both doing our duty. We can still be friends. We can still be like sisters. I'm here for you. You're here for me. Do you trust me? I trust you. We'll see how long that pans out.
Yeah, that's just not going to last long.
But you do have to think about the show in terms of the reality in which it's being constructed in.
Because when is her mom nature going to kick in and go, Aegon is really, he's the real heir. And so why don't we just, get over with it? Your dad died and you're no longer the pick. Let's just do what we do. Let's do what the realm, what's right for the realm.
What the realm wants too.
Yeah, which is what the realm wants.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting. What else we got?
Ilif Barasley. Shout out to that kid at the beginning of the episode for having balls of steel for challenging the dude who was heckling him and straight up killing him, and just can get away with it. Nobody would say,
yeah,
that was awesome.
He was dishonoring you and your house. Good for you, kiddo. Man. And now we fight with our words.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Bobcat Driver says, I find it interesting that Corlys definitely won this round of the game, and he wasn't even in this episode. Control of the Stepstones, wedding between his son and Rhaenyra, and his rival Otto gone.
Yeah, it seems like he's really got a full deck right now. He's got all the chips on his side. I'm really, really interested to see how this wedding pans out. Because, I mean, is it even going to happen?
Or is Otto just causing enough discord? I mean, is Corlys causing enough discord that he'll still go ahead with the wedding for the free cities? Mm-hmm. I mean, who knows?
And it's not bad to have friends in all these different places.
Nope. And the king is weak. Mm-hmm. The king is weak.
Right now, he's the character playing the game the best, in my opinion. He's really, really making some moves.
That's true.
And they've been off screen, which is ridiculous. What else we got?
Ilif Barazli says, I feel awful for Rhaenyra and Alicent. Even as the heir or as the queen, they have no power or control over their own lives. And that's exactly the point. Mm-hmm. You know, the as smart as both of them are smart, but both of them are trapped in a world they never made.
Exactly.
You know, they not like Howard the Duck. They are trapped in this world that they never made because they're women, and unfortunately, that's what this world is all about. And truly smash the patriarchy. But that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
not going to happen.
Oh, how heartbreaking was that too? The line of, you know, I don't want to be trapped in a castle, just, you know, churning out heirs. And Alicent, just her face dropping, and then Rhaenyra realizing, oh my God, what did I just say to you?
Yeah.
Oh, and we've had that too with Sir Criston talking about anyone would change places with you. Well, no one's ever been in my place. So no matter where you're at, life is hard for everyone. Everyone's on their own journey.
And no one remembers history.
No one does.
Everybody wants things away. Our culture is definitely guilty of this. No. Our culture needs to be this way. And you're like, yo, the last 2,000 years of history, you can't deny it. Change comes either quickly or not quick enough.
Exactly. Well said, Rob.
So Bobcat Driver says, it was cool seeing the Blackwood and Bracken rivalry depicted in live action. Lord Samwell Blackwood, the boy suitor of Rhaenyra, is an important part of the Dance of the Dragons moving forward.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Well, and I assume at this point, again, because I'm not a book reader for this particular part of the series, I'm assuming that everyone we meet is going to be an important player unless they're immediately murdered.
Yes. If they're not given screen time, then they don't matter. But if they're even, obviously, we're going to remember all these people.
Exactly.
And they're setting up, as certain characters depart, we're going to get new characters coming in.
Exactly.
Because who doesn't like that kid?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone likes that kid.
A little bamf.
When he shows back up.
He's great.
Yeah. People are going to love him. Ilif Barazli says, it's very clear that Daemon isn't afraid of his brother. Viserys had a knife to Daemon's throat, and Daemon knew his brother wouldn't kill him. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think Daemon kind of doesn't care.
He doesn't care. He's like, he's got a lot of the Joker in him, a lot of the Heath Ledger Joker. Mm-hmm. Like, he kind of likes that chaotic.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's a sensualist. You know, he drinks up life. He literally drinks, but he wants his sensual pleasures. If it feels good, do it. But then he also, like, he's on the high seas of chaos, hoping that maybe something will come my way and I will be king. Yeah. Of course I want to be. Who doesn't want to be king? And I'm close to it. My brother's king. I might be king. Why not? Mm-hmm. But if I'm not king, I'm going to have a really great time.
Exactly. Oh.
But then I think, his own, like, I think he does love his brother, and that's why he can't get it up. Because when he gets to a position where he's going to do something that's really bad, like sleep with his own niece, he can't go through with it.
But what about with his prostitute?
Well, even her, I think he feels for her. Like, there's a reason why she saved his, he was out, and it was her. She found him after, 3 or 4 years they hadn't seen each other since Dragonstone. He's off fighting that war, and she even loves him. And maybe he couldn't deal with the fact that this woman's in love with me. I want to be saved, and he can't deal with it. I mean, I think Daemon's curse is he has a conscience.
So it's a psychological reason why he can't fire.
That's usually why it is.
Oh, all right.
You get ahead of yourself. I wouldn't know. You've never had that problem.
No.
Matthew Medina says, you guys aren't ready for the next episode. Record your loved one's reactions. It's that type of episode. You know how sexy and bloody weddings are.
When it comes to the Game of Thrones world, yeah.
Oh, I think that, it's episode 5. All hell's going to break loose.
I think so,
and
too.
Reset the board. Mm-hmm. And then the time jump's going to happen.
Yes.
Probably within that episode.
I think so too.
Mayhem is going to erupt, and I can't wait.
I think it's going to be a ton of carnage, and then we introduce our older actors.
I don't think, though, it's going to be like the Red Wedding, because no one saw that coming.
That's fair.
Where we're all prepped. Mm-hmm. We're all the fuse has been lit. It's burning down to the powder keg, and it's going to go off. That's
why I'm kind of terrified of this episode, though, because I really do think they're going to up the ante on how just vicious and violent it's going to be. Because we've been fairly tame thus far.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, in terms of Game of Thrones, we've been fairly tame. So I think this is going to be the one where we just blow the hinges off the door and get ridiculous and violent.
I totally agree. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be glorious.
Yeah.
Man with the Master Plan says, hey, yo, who is the White Worm? Daemon's girlfriend? Otto getting fired was great. And Viserys is not as naive as they have been portraying him. No, he's not. The White Worm.
The White Worm.
I'm not sure who the White Worm is.
I'm trying to remember what that was about.
But no, I think the whole thing about Viserys is he just doesn't want to deal with what he knows. Mm-hmm. He's always trying, let's have some more drinks.
Yeah.
Let's have a party.
I want to hang out with my kid more. Don't bother me with all this malicious stuff.
Yeah, celebration now. Come on. That's what Viserys wants.
Let's have a good time.
Yeah, and I think that's the big deal, is that he doesn't want to deal, but when he is confronted, I mean, he knows he's dying. He's literally falling apart at the seams, and I don't envy him, because he knows that all of this stuff that's happening that he's going to have to deal with at the end of his life, it's going to just turn to shit, and he knows it. He knows it.
Yeah. Ugh, those black fingies. Every time I see the just like decaying fingers on Viserys. Ugh.
I mean, if he was a Prince fan, he'd look at Rhaenyra and say, "You're filthy cute and baby, you know it." Cream Shaboogie. Ilif Barasley says, I was Team Daemon last week. I feel the opposite after this episode. He really threw his niece under the bus for his quest to the throne. But is that a surprise? Like, I like Daemon's ability to go places he shouldn't go in his quest for the throne. Mm-hmm. Because it's just, the problem is he has a conscience. And he wants to be this, he can go into battle, but when it comes down to doing the real nitty gritty, because he loves his niece.
Yeah.
He truly loves her. And while he probably, he thought he could do it, because he's that kind of guy, I can do it, but he couldn't.
No. The minute, though, he pulled off her cap, I was just like, oh, you son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh, man. You know what you're doing, you creep.
Yeah, he wanted to be seen. Mm-hmm. He wanted that to happen.
Ugh. He's a schemer.
Ilif Barasley says, I didn't realize Westeros had their own version of Plan B. Laugh out loud. Neither did I.
No, but now we know.
It's a new one, but it has to be properly mixed.
Properly brewed. Otherwise.
Maybe is that the White Worm? Is that what? I don't know.
We've got a couple things in the chat of saying White Worm was maybe Masara or the little boy who was the spy. Oh. I've got conflicting things in the chat, so I'm not sure. We'll find out, though.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
Sam Fisher says, because episode 5 is the halfway mark, I have a feeling that it'll be the last episode with Millie Alcock and Emily Carey as Rhaenyra and Alicent, respectively. Oh, I think you can bet on that.
I think so, too. And I am going to miss them.
I will miss it. They're great.
They're such good actresses. So I'm really excited to see what the new people bring. But I'm really looking forward, particularly for Millie Alcock's career, to see what else she does.
Yes.
All right.
Matthew Medina says, Ray seemed like she wasn't the dom in the sexual encounter. She was the Ray seemed like if she wasn't the dom in the sexual encounter, she was in total control of every sexual encounter that night. The power, agency, and control she had was excellent to build further on her depth of character. Oh, I think so too.
Absolutely.
I mean, even when stuff was going down, this was a world she had never seen before, and she was going to embrace it no matter what. And
do so on her own terms after that interaction.
Yes.
So that made total sense to me. And Matthew, thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level, that $20 super chat. That's super sweet of you. We appreciate it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Sam Fisher says, one of the recaps for this episode I saw was titled, That Icky Thing You Knew Was Coming, It's Here.
Oh, that's a great recap title. Because, yeah, episode 1, you knew there was going to be incestual shenanigans. Blah.
I mean, it's not like incestuous shenanigans are foreign to Game of Thrones watchers.
This is very true. You knew you were going to get into it. My friend calls this season Incest and Dragons.
And it is. Incest and Dragons.
Yeah.
We all have a hot cousin. Matthew Medina says,
oh, no.
Euphoria in Westeros. Get it, Ray? Does Euphoria have incest in it too?
No, but Euphoria has lots of sex.
Yes, it does. Well, thank God. I mean, I like to know the youth of America is doing something.
They're getting it done.
I mean, rather than complaining about everything else on TikTok.
Oh my gosh, Rob.
I know.
They're doing great things.
Sam Fisher says, I think Daemon's wife is going to be this big reveal. Oh, of course it is.
Yeah.
And they keep building her up and talking about her, but we haven't seen her. I think she's going to step down and look like Galadriel or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I don't know. So,
every time he refers to her as the bronze bitch, I'm like, you asshole. How are you so mean to this woman that we haven't seen?
He can't get it up for her. Mm-hmm. That's why he has no heirs.
I really hope that she is just super emasculating and treats him like dog shit.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait.
Oh, I want to see that dynamic. Because honestly, too, given all of his character traits, I think a part of him loves some kind of combative relationship because he's a little prick.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested to watch them spar.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Blake62 says, I'm concurrently rewatching Game of Thrones with House of the Dragon, and it's impressive that the show feels so similar, but also doesn't feel like a rehash. They're both great. Ooh. I totally agree with that. Yeah. This doesn't feel like a rehash at all, but it seems like it certainly takes place in the same world. But I think the fact that this story is much more intimate is exactly the difference that it needed. I mean, that's one of the things I love about it. I was worried, is this going to feel like it doesn't feel like a rehash at all.
It's not more of the same. It's just more world building that feels very new and fresh, which is really cool to do with a prequel.
And I mean, as opposed to other prequels that aren't as reverential to the original material.
Agree to disagree?
I'm just going to say, this is the way you do a prequel right. Because you never feel like you're seeing something that you already know. I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't read the books, but as a viewer, I'm like, I have no clue.
I will say their pacing on House of the Dragon and their editing, much better than some other things right now.
Oh, yes.
I will concede on that point.
Indeed.
Like what? Like better than what?
Like better than your mom, Jonathan. Get out of here.
Cool, bro.
That's not what I say. Sam Fisher says the tea at the end of this episode feels like the biggest betrayal yet. It's basically Viserys telling Rhaenyra, I didn't believe you. Yeah, that's true. And unfortunately he doesn't. But the fact is he's right not to believe her because she would have done it.
Yeah.
She would have slept with him because I mean, she was coming into her own, but she would have done the deed. He just couldn't. Mm-hmm. She had sinned already.
Yeah. Well, and he even went into that whole diatribe with his brother about, well, yeah, for us, we got to do all of this, but she's a woman. And he has that discussion with her, too. You're a woman. You don't get to have the same pleasures and frolics as I did. Tough. Deal with it. And I don't believe you. I know my brother's a piece of shit, but you know what? You've been kind of a little turd yourself.
And he's like, I know what you would do. Of course you would do that.
Yeah. I want a shirt that says...
Truly, this show is, what is it, the Hot D?
It is the Hot D.
This is the Hot D episode ever.
Oh my gosh.
Dropped the Hot D for episode 4. Woohoo!
I just want a shirt, though, that says, you're my political problem. Because when he refers to Rhaenyra as that, I just... so good.
That, you know what? In this logo... You're my political problem. Yes. It's like I drink and I know things.
Exactly.
You're my political problem.
Such a great burn.
I'm going to start saying that all the time to everybody I know.
Yeah.
Daniel Vakura said, I love the episode and the dichotomy between Rhaenyra and Alicent with their relationships. It was very well done. It's much more compelling than Rings of Power. Alicent really is trying to be a good friend to Rhaenyra. I mean, here's the thing. I don't even think you can compare and contrast Rings of Power with this. They're all at the same time. They're both fantasy stories based on books, based on authors' works. But they're so apart and diametrically opposed from one another that you can't even compare them. The fact that and I think in a way, it's an unfair comparison. I think House of the Dragon is a much better show overall. But there's things that There's human behaviors that they would never get into in Rings of Power simply because of where the origins of who wrote it and why it was written. Rings of Power, I mean, House of the Dragon, you could take it out of a fantasy realm and plop it right now in Europe and tell the exact same story with the exact same stuff going on, and it would work. Whereas Rings of Power is not that.
Rings of Power is, Lord of the Rings as a whole, is our standard for fantasy.
Right.
So the elements of the fantastical are the point of that show, right?
Exactly.
So it is a very apples oranges thing, even though we're still living in that fantasy realm.
I mean, I've always said, like, okay, you can have a cop There's all kinds of cop shows, cop stories, but they're not all the same. You've got Al Pacino and Serpico, a cop turning informant against other cops and corruption. Then you've got Beverly Hills Cop, and then you've got take your pick.
Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz. There you go. They're all about police officers, but they're all very, very different shows. Just because they're about cops, they're not the same at all.
Or you have Bright, which, ugh.
Oh, yeah.
That was a bummer. So much potential. Ugh.
Not good. Ismael Montoya says, hey, guys, the show is really good. The writing is phenomenal. Even when Daemon and Rhaenyra were doing their thing, I couldn't stop watching. Of course not. They brought the filthy.
They did.
No one stopped. You don't ever stop watching that.
It's such a train wreck moment, right? Where you're like, don't do this. But also, we knew this was going to happen. There's obviously chemistry there. It's a big ick moment. It's a big ick moment that you can't turn away from.
And it's also, so, I mean, she is being taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
And he's doing it on purpose. And look, it is exactly what has been going on to women for thousands of years. And we're watching in front of us. And when we talk about things like the patriarchy, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about women being victimized by men who are using them for their own. And it happens all day, every day since the dawn of time. It's happening today all around the world. And for anybody to get upset about it, you're supposed to be upset about it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what's happening here.
That's the point. If it makes you feel gross, good.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
That should be your takeaway.
Nasser says, hey, John and company, how do you guys feel about the excessive nudity in today's episode? Editing this down for a reaction video is an absolute nightmare.
Oh, no. Well, you'd got to blur a lot of things out. We were talking off camera, though, where based on my previous viewing of Game of Thrones, right, I expected a lot more nudity.
Right.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Rob, about the female gaze on this, is that, yes, we saw a whole bunch of bodies put together doing all kinds of things, but it also, in a way, didn't feel gratuitous. There was that sense of overwhelm of just, like an overload of, very sensual imagery that you couldn't quite place things. It was a very weird, sexy human centipede. There's a lot of stuff happening.
But I think that's what made it's so great. I mean, men tend to focus on the mechanics of it all. We want to see the tools. We want to see the machinery. That's what we want. This was focusing more on the feeling of what all of this is. Yeah. What does it feel like to go to an orgy if you're in it? If you're not participating, you're just seeing it.
When you show up to the eyes wide shut party.
Yeah. Yes.
What are you taking in?
That's right. And for Rhaenyra, she'd never seen anything like this before. So, I mean, she knew it. Everybody knows about it, but they hadn't seen something like this. And she didn't just sit there and stop and look at one person. She was taking in the whole room. It was all of it at once and overwhelming. And I thought they did a great job with it. Absolutely.
So for me, it wasn't gratuitous, but we'll see how the other scenes pan out. We can only go from here.
Yeah. Matt Sanders says, this episode was awesome. Otto is right. She did do the deed, but not with who they think. Love the episode. Otto was right. But see, the thing is, it was like if you're doing it with your own uncle, it's a little creepier than if you do it with your hot
night. Yeah. When he said princess later on, just at the princess, just like, you can come in. That moment was so cute and so awkward. I really hope that they continue out, because they really were forming a friendship.
Yeah.
I hope that this doesn't mess up the dynamic that they had together. It often does.
Well, she's going to need somebody with a sword to help her.
Yeah.
Soon. So we'll see if his sword's big enough.
Ooh.
Yeah, he doesn't know what that one goes.
Andy says, I know this is more comparable to Daemon and Rhaenyra, but seeing Rhaenyra and Sir Criston Cole together and getting that hot D reminds me of Jon and Daenerys. Well, the difference between Jon and Daenerys is that they were related. I mean, they were both Targaryens.
They didn't know it. Once they did, though, Dany was like, that don't matter.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm your auntie. Which, again, poof. At least with Rhaenyra and Criston, it seems like they had a connection going into this.
Yes.
The moment itself did feel like there was a very weird power dynamic, because there was.
Yes.
She had so much power in that situation, which, again, it's really nice to see a female character have sexual agency. But at the same time, you do feel a little awkward for Criston because it doesn't seem like he feels comfortable with this at all.
No, he was coerced by her station in life. And it also, so I thought that was fascinating because it shows that the power dynamic can work both ways.
Exactly.
That when you have power, it doesn't matter. In our society now, there are very powerful women executives. I mean, this happens all the time on both sides.
Yes. And
what were you going to do? You can't tell your soon-to-be queen. You can't tell her no. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
He had no choice.
I'm glad there was at least one moment where he finally like went and grabbed her and was like, okay, he seems like he's on board. That's good.
Right.
Because going into it, I kept being like, oh no, he does not want to do this with you. Don't be like that. Don't be your uncle. Unlearn that behavior.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that all shakes out with their relationship, though.
She was on fire. What could she do? Trevor said, my favorite part of the show is still Matt Smith's performance. Being a Doctor Who fan, I'm happy more people get to see how great of an actor he is. I agree.
Yeah, he's so good in Doctor Who.
But he's also great in The Crown.
He's wonderful in The Crown. And you know what? Honestly, Party Animals, he's fantastic on. Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, I think that movie's really fun. He does a good job in it.
No, he's the real deal.
He's done a wonderful thing. And
he does a lot in this show.
He does.
For an actor, how much fun must he be having?
Oh my gosh. Dream role, right? You just get to do all the things. You get to have fight choreography. You get to be a total cad. You get to have moments where you're badass. I mean,
make out with hot girls, hot actresses.
That's why we all get into the business.
It's true. Although I have to say, it is very awkward for everybody when you're shooting love scenes.
Oh, it's incredibly awkward because it's so technical.
It's never not
That's
awkward.
why intimacy coordinators are so important too, not only for the actual mechanics of everything going down and making sure everyone's safe, but because it is a real slog getting through those kinds of scenes. It's so uncomfortable for everyone involved.
Andy says, damn, Rhaenyra got that hot D.
Well
I see what you
played,
did
Andy.
there. Winter may not be coming yet, but Sir Cole sure did.
Damn it, Andy.
Also, I didn't know that Westeros had their own morning after pill.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great place to live,
Plan
right?
T. Plan T is what they use.
Plan T.
Man, that was great, Andy. Thank you
That
for
was
that.
good. Eric Thorpe Reviews says, hi, John and company. Any of you going to the first official GOT convention at the LA Convention Center from December 9th through 11th? Kit gonna be there.
Oh, that's
I'm gonna go.
fun. Yeah?
I'm totally gonna go.
Oh, that'd be fun. We should go.
Yeah, we should all go.
Oh my gosh. Well, we can get more of this, but we can also get mead.
Oh yeah. If there's all gotta go to a Game of Thrones.
Oh, that'd be a blast. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Cool. I didn't know
I'm
about
gonna
it.
dye my hair blonde. Targaryen blonde. Trevor says, controversial opinion. Although I've really liked Hot D so far, episode 4 was by far my least favorite episode, feeling like it dragged. Even worse than Rings of Power's first episode. I was constantly checking the time. Trevor, I don't know what show you're watching, buddy, but it all depends on what people want.
Well, I was watching this with some of my friends because we all get together on Sundays to watch together. And I had a few of them too. This feels like a really slow episode. This feels really, really laggy. And I think it is because we didn't have as much, violence, because we didn't have as many like political machinations and big fights in that way.
But I mean, I was on the edge of my seat as soon as Rhaenyra left the castle. And they're out in King's Landing. I was like, Jesus Christ, go back inside. Why are you out there?
Yeah, it was a very tense episode for me.
Yeah, and everything that happened was tense. All the conversations with people, but it depends on what people are looking for from their entertainment. To me, this was by the way, this episode was designed to be exactly what it was. I'm always talking about authorship. This episode was written and directed exactly the way they wanted it to be. And I loved it. It was just different.
Yeah.
It all needed to happen. I mean, this was the chess pieces being moved on the board.
Exactly.
And people not realizing, and we're basically we're right on the edge of the abyss. And the abyss next week is going to look into you.
Ooh, it's going to be intense.
It's going to be intense.
What a wedding.
Irene Jobson says, man, what an episode. As Al Green says, let's get it on, Alabama edition. Is that what happens in Alabama?
Apparently. I feel like the joke is usually Arkansas. I don't want to disparage any of my Southern compatriots, but well done, Irene. Yeah, it felt a little backwoods to say the least.
Yeah. Ooh, boy.
And then we're just ending with some support.
Trolls combust. That was, congratulate. You know what? That's very funny. That Trolls Combust is a reference to Brie Larson posting pictures of the cast for Marvels. And she wrote
cute.
Trolls Combust kudos to you for that name.
Trolls Combust,
and
that's
for
awesome.
supporting like that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. You guys, that's going to do it for us on this after show episode about House of the Dragon. Thank you so much for being here. We literally can't do it without you because otherwise it's just me and Rob talking at you. We need your tasty comments here to give us things to discuss.
And today's comments were tasty.
They were
indeed.
delicious. So we very much appreciate you. Big thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this episode. Rob, where can the people find you?
Wasn't that a perfect sponsor for this?
It was such a good
episode?
sponsor for this
Although
one.
I don't think many people use manscaping in Westeros.
I don't think they're using toothbrushes.
Yeah, no.
Oof.
Ooh, boy. People can find me in hell. You can also find me on Instagram at RM Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM or on my own YouTube channel, Post Geek Singularity.
Awesome. And I'm Kris Carr. You can find me at actor Kris Carr on both Twitter and Instagram, or go over to my studio, www.speakfriendstudio.com. We can talk about voiceover and stuff. Until next time, you guys, Jakaris.